Circles and Mental Health with Patty Moss. And tonight we're talking about love addiction. We were talking backstage love addiction that we've all probably been there.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this sort of from two different levels because it's, as always, I want to keep the focus with a non-dual perspective, which of course miracles is one path of many non-dualistic paths. So I don't want to ever forget that. But on the other hand, I want to talk about it on the level of here we are in the world, having relationships, and how do we have healthy relationships? And what exactly is that? And how do you get addicted to it's not I was going to say a relationship, but uh, how do you get addicted to love? Which, in the true sense of what love is, you can't be addicted to
Right.
love. But the ego form of love, I think, if someone is loving just from the mindset of the ego, then it lends itself to addiction almost all the time. So
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 what
I
is it
think
with
everyone who has a relationship kind of in the world probably has some kind of addiction to whether it's a relationship or sex or a fantasy or any of those things.
I think you might have hit something key when you said fantasy. Because sort of from a course perspective, aren't we all um, in the majority of relationships sort of in love with a fantasy of what we think this person is, what we believe they should provide us, um, and when they don't, or when they can't fulfill that, uh, then like with every addiction, we need a better fix, a greater fix. We go on to something else or someone else, or serial relationships, even serial, you know, long-term relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Let me open up and let people know this is most definitely a question and answer exploration session. So if you have questions about relationships, about love addiction, or otherwise,
Yeah.
that we mentioned again that Patty is a therapist, and you uh, family therapist, but not exclusively, right?
Right. So my license is as a marriage and family therapist, but I deal mostly with individuals and couples and anywhere from teenagers to adults. And a lot of the issues that people come on in with are around relationships. And Eric, as you said, the issue is like we do get attached to an idea of what a relationship is supposed to do for us. And even when I was learning about how to be a therapist, relationships would be talked about like, you're trying to find someone to meet your wants and needs. And that is to me such an ego concept that at the time that I heard that, I didn't think much of it. But now I see relationships very differently because we can shift the purpose and if there is some addictive quality to not just a relationship but sex too, if there's an addictive quality to any kind of behavior or interactions that people have, then those have to be worked out before you can shift the purpose of relationships in general.
Right. You ready for our first question?
Sure.
Question: can you love someone so much that you lose yourself, forget about yourself, and only that love exists? Would you call that love?
That's kind of tricky to answer because you love someone so much. So I feel like true love isn't attached to any particular person. So if we're really coming from a place of love, that would be with everyone. It just manifest in different forms with different people. So could you love so much that you lose yourself? Sorry, my dog's may
That's okay.
bark. So I feel like we are trying to undo this identity that we have as an ego. And so losing ourselves could be a positive thing if we're losing ourselves into love. But if it's attached to one particular person, then that would not be healthy.
Um, Someone actually alluded to what you said. After years of being, after years of being still, I realized it wasn't man's love I was craving; it was God's love. So she sort of alluded
Yes.
to what you were saying, that when you,
Yeah.
if we, sometimes I think a better word for losing would be absorb. I like that word. I like
Mhm.
the concept of absorption. Uh,
Yeah.
but you and I were talking before. I think all of us have lost ourselves, lost our identity, not in a good way, in a relationship. We, we take
Right.
on a role that we think is going to be pleasing to the other person, to the extent of um, harming ourselves.
Right. And that's more of the codependent kind of way of being, which some people tend to be more codependent in relationships, and some people tend to be more self focused in relationships. And those two types of people often come together, which is a really uh, great thing for the ego to use in terms of a so called love addiction,
Mm.
because the person who's more codependent and wants to meet the needs of the self centered person at some point probably feels unseen, unheard, misunderstood, whatever it might be. And so there's this craving for the other person to meet a sort of love void. Whereas the person who, if someone is more self focused, then no matter what that other person is trying to do to meet their needs, it's never going to be what they want. So, yeah, so on either side of that, you have two unhappy people if we're talking about just a so-called romantic relationship between two people. So
Right.
people tend to come together that are on different sides of the, shall we say, there's a book that talks about this that I will get into a little later. But basically, people who are very codependent are attracted to people who are more narcissistic without trying. I'm really trying not to label people, but just for the sake of the conversation, those relationships tend to last a long time, but they also keep both people stuck in an ego dynamic that neither one feels like they want, but have trouble getting out of.
Patty, could you offer an explanation of codependency and an example of what a codependent relationship would look like? If I look at
Yeah.
it from a Buddhist point, uh, codependency sounds like a pretty good thing. That we are codependent, we're entwined, that one doesn't exist without the other. I'm thinking of Nagarjuna as the middle way, that everything is in relation to something else. But
Right.
codependency, in the psychological sense, in the emotional sense, is something that it's not considered healthy.
Right. Yeah, and it manifests in a lot of different ways. I would say the most common is uh, having how we feel be dependent on somebody else. So if you're my partner and you're in a bad mood, I'm in a bad mood. So it's basically taking on the experience or the feelings or responsibility for another person versus being uh, being connected to that person without taking on responsibility for that
Right.
individual.
Patty, would you say that those who are highly empathetic might end up being more likely to be in a codependent relationship? because they're taking on those qualities of the other person.
Yes. And with empathy, sometimes comes the understanding of someone's feelings and then wanting to fix it. So that's where the codependency comes in, because empathy, of course, is a wonderful thing. And I don't see anything, to me, there's nothing negative. You can't be too empathic. People will say that, oh, I'm too empathic or I'm too sensitive. And that's not, I don't think that's true. I think it's more that you are not only empathic, but you're taking it on and feeling it as if it's happening to you, which is different than you're going through something and I want to support you through it. And
Right.
maybe I'm hurting too, but I'm not trying to fix it for you.
Tricia says empathetic and the narcissist. So they go together.
Yeah, so there's a book, it's by Ross Rosenberg. It's called The Human Magnet Syndrome. And I recommend it for anybody who feels like they're in a relationship with someone who's on the narcissistic side and someone who is, as she's asking, as someone who is more empathic, because it's really helpful to understand he has this scale, and 0 is the blend of you are able to attend to yourself and other people equally. So I think as parents that's a situation where you do need to put your kids first in terms of their needs, because you're responsible for them. But aside from that, in relationships, the scale goes from 0 to -5 on one side and +5 on the other. So -5 would be an extremely codependent person who just is trying to please and doesn't really have a sense of themselves and is looking to someone else to fill their love void by, like, okay, I'm with this successful person, so that's how I feel successful. So it's also trying to control the other person in terms of trying to get them to heal or trying to get them to be more empathic, which of
Right.
course you can't do for someone else. On the other side of the scale, you have your extreme, a +5 would be an extreme narcissist slash sociopath who really doesn't have empathy at all.
I was just
And
going to ask you that.
so,
Is it possible? I was going to ask you, is it possible for a narcissist to be empathetic?
yes, it is. Because if you want, I just actually had some clients that I was working with on this issue today. If you want to be empathic, you can learn how, even if it doesn't come naturally to you, but you have to want to. So, someone who's a full blown, let's say diagnostically, someone who is a full blown narcissist typically doesn't want to be more empathic. So the extremes are, if you're with someone who is a +5 on the narcissist scale, they're probably not going to change. Not to say that they can't, but do they want to? Whereas if you get more toward, let's say, a -3, someone who has a love void, they're more focused on other people, and a +3, someone who's more self centered. But at a 3, they can both work more toward the middle. So the codependent person can learn how to be more focused on themselves, and the self-centered person can learn how to be more empathic, because then they are wanting to come together, and it's a great opportunity to heal some things that are unhealed in our mind, because this is all really about healing our minds, and relationships are a great way to do it. But relationships also reenact past trauma a lot of times. And so that's what happens with addiction. It's a lot of times past trauma gets manifested as some kind of love or sex addiction.
Right. This seems to be a case where the principles, especially relationship principles of the Course of Miracles, would really help the dynamics in a relationship. That if you could truly see that um, the relationship is a journey from specialness to holiness,
Yeah.
and that the only way you could do that is by putting your focus on that other person, that you're my path. Not at the expense, obviously, not at the expense of your own emotional well-being, but if you see that this particular relationship that I'm in, and of course we're in a relationship with everyone, but the particular one that I, I'm in on an intimate level, um, is my best path for awakening.
Yeah, the tricky thing with that is that if you are someone who uh, is if you're the person that's more codependent and you're with someone who is more self-centered and you're just focused on giving, and then that person is criticizing and blaming and not on the same path toward we're both here to really just give to each other and we're both here to heal, then you're going to be reenacting perhaps the sense of uh, not being able to experience love fully. Because if you're with someone who really um, can't come from that place, everyone has the same love inside them. But if someone's so blocked from it that they can't express it with you, then it just doesn't seem real helpful to be in a relationship like that. If both people aren't, you don't have to have the same even spiritual way of looking at things, but if you're not both on some kind of path toward healing, then that makes it really tough to have the relationship be, as Eric's saying, going to a holy relationship versus a special relationship.
Right. We have another question. Um, how do we achieve a spontaneous elation of a long enduring kind? So that peak experience of love.
I think just by being open to it, because we can't, that's why it's difficult. Like with dating apps, there's nothing wrong with people looking for partners. But on the other hand, it's not something that can be forced because when you're on a spiritual path, I feel like you're given the people in your life who are meant to guide you on the journey or help you through. And so that's kind of what happens with relationships. If someone tries to fit someone else into a box, that doesn't lend itself toward an enduring love. Whereas if you find someone where you connect in this loving way and you are determined to help each other heal, and then it can always be loving, and then that it endures, sort of, it becomes enduring because it's just one moment at a time of loving that becomes long lasting.
Um, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
If I'm using emotional balance to avoid showing my vulnerability of love, am I actually choosing fear over a miracle? How do I break this cycle of limiting my emotions?
Using,
I will pin that comment too. And you should be able to see it in black if that's helpful.
yes, I can see it. uh Fear over a miracle. Well, I feel like emotional vulnerability also needs to be in a safe container. And so if we have a partner or we need trusted people to be able to do that. And so in order of I think a lot of people end up holding emotion in because they don't trust that their partner is going to honor it, accept it, take it the way that is meant. So I think first we have to have trusted people we can do that with. And then we just ask the Holy Spirit for help in expressing what we feel we need to express. And then knowing that however that's received really has nothing to do with us because people react to each other based on their own experiences. And so we're never really meeting someone just in the moment. We're bringing all of our
Hmm.
programming in. So uh, Yeah, so I think a lot of that is also learning how to not take things personally, even if it's coming from a partner.
When we think about one, all the baggage, when we finally land that one great relationship, and then we think about all the baggage of all the bad relationships that we're bringing with us, it's almost a wonder that any relationship can survive because we really don't deal with the present moment. We don't see anyone as they truly are. I see everyone through the lens of all the crap I've been through, or all the great things, which leads to expectations that how come you're not doing it the way, you know, this person or this person or that person did it? Why don't you make me feel this way all the time? You know, we don't have that present moment. We don't have a present moment relationship with the present moment, let alone with someone else. Um, Makes me
Yep.
wonder how do we ever end up with a healthy relationship?
Right. It's funny because having been a therapist for so long, I had that very question. I'm like, I see so many unhealthy relationships, even if it's not what the client came in for. And I'm like, how do people have a sustaining long term relationship? And I feel like it takes the same level of commitment in terms of being vulnerable, working through difficult emotions, uh, being committed to love rather than to the other person, so that when you do have unloving thoughts or you do have issues that come up, you still can deal with them in a way that isn't attacking of the other person. That it's still, we're in this together and we're working this out together. I think, and then being able to have whatever boundaries we need too, because people have also, how do you get two people that have the exact same needs for time together, time apart, food, doing things, sex? Like, we all have different preferences, and so it's hard to align on everything. So you need two people who are very flexible about, hey, you need more space than me, then I'm okay with that. I can do that. I always tell couples, a lot of times with sex, couples will, one person wants it more than the other, especially in long term relationships. That happens a lot. And I tell clients, well, the one that wants it less wins. Sorry, but that's the way it goes. Because if you don't want something, if you're at a meal and one person wants 5 pieces of pizza and one wants one, well, you don't have to force yourself to have five. So that would not be healthy if your partner said, no, I want 5 pieces, so you need to have 5 pieces. And sex is the same way. It's something that has to be honored when, one person is not as sexual as the other, then that's that's okay. And if it's not okay for either person, that's the thing, is that if there's some issue in a relationship, that no matter how much you try to spiritualize maybe through it, it's just not working, then it's okay to decide, I don't feel like this is helping me grow. I feel like this is reenacting an old pattern of mine. Then sometimes you can leave a relationship with love just as easily as you start one with love.
Sure. What about intimacy? Do you find that maybe some people use sex as a mask for expressing true intimacy? And wouldn't the, I don't want to say one's more important than the other, but to me, it seems that the intimacy is the foundation for the relationship, and the sex is um, uh, a part of it, a very expressive, beautiful part of it. But the main thing is that everyday intimacy that you can express, just the touch, the the looks, the presence, uh, is start there. And no matter no matter where you go, sex, no sex, you have something that can last.
Yes, that's a really great point, because if it's truly loving, then the love doesn't go away. Even if the relationship doesn't work, the love is still there. And sex is like, sex has no meaning in and of itself. So sex can be a reflection of intimacy, or sex could be an acting out of violence. So
Right.
the same activity can be horrifically abusive as well as loving and intimate and kind and sexy and passionate and all those things. So it's never about the thing. Just like a meal could be something you join over, or it could be something that makes you sick. So, yeah,
Right.
so I think coming back to just every day showing up with love. Just like you, I mean, you do this, Eric, to everyone. You send out your love messages every day, which is such a beautiful thing to do, because
Thank you.
that's just reflecting the love that's in our heart. And the more we do that, you just notice. I mean, it comes back.
I was in a 5 a.m. love stream, a 5 a.m. live stream, and I had mentioned, this was months ago, everyone should hear, everyone should get a greeting of "I love you" every day. And a friend said, "I never hear it." And I thought, well, you will from now on. So I decided to show up every day because there's someone out there who just doesn't hear it. Uh, so who knows who's going to find that video? Uh, and um, it's become a, I absolutely love showing up and knowing that there's just someone who needs to hear it.
And I mean, that's just such a loving thing to do, to recognize that someone has that need and it's something I can fulfill. And I think that's an important part of love too, that you're deciding to give something, but you're also giving something that doesn't feel like a sacrifice, because
Right.
sacrifice isn't love either. And we're not meant to sacrifice anything for another person. So we can decide, in this situation, I feel like I want to do something for you that maybe isn't my favorite thing, because I feel like that would really benefit you more than what I have a preference for right now. That's not sacrifice. So you doing that, just showing up to say I love you, whether someone needs to hear it, or every time I just kind of come across it, I'm like, oh, it's just such a nice feeling, right? So it's just, yeah, it's just really not that hard to express love, except the ego makes it hard.
Right. It actually does a world of good for me too, to just say it, to um, open my heart. And
Yeah.
because I take a minute before I say it. I don't think of any particular message. I let it come. I hit that play button and I let it come unplanned, whatever it is. But I do take a minute to open myself up to love's presence and say, may this find whoever needs to hear it. May I be filled with love and may I offer it and may it find whoever needs to hear it. And it cultivating love is never, never the wrong thing to do.
Exactly. And yet, in the ego definition of love, it's possessive a lot of times. It's jealous. Like if you were in a, just let's say um, I don't know how to say this. In your mainstream society, if you were just to say "I love you" to people, they'd be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" Which is so odd. But it's sort of like, when people are too joyful, the ego perceives them as being crazy. It's sort of like that, because love isn't meant to just be. It's not meant to be with just one person or a few people. It's meant to be truly loving. We share it with everyone. And so that's such an example of that, which I think is also the beauty in it.
I'm not sure if this is a question, but we can address it as such. Do the relationships, do the relationship need to have a deeper dimension, or it's not going to work? Period.
Mm, that's a great question because that actually comes up a lot. Uh, no, I don't think it has to have that. Well, I mean, love is deep, but in terms of, I think what the person's asking is, some people talk on it on a deeper level than others do, and maybe the relationship is just more experiencing things together rather than delving into spirituality or uh, how you look at the world or deeper kind of issues. And it just depends. If someone can be their most loving in that space, great. If someone's feeling like, oh, I'm missing something, then that, I think, would be important to address, either by deciding, can I really be loving and okay with this, or do I need to feel like I can fully love to the extent that I want? Do I also need a partner who can relate on a deeper level?
Let's talk about that for a second. Mixed relationships. Course Miracle student uh, for one and a non-course student for another.
Hmm.
How does that work?
uh, it can work in theory, and I know there are relationships that, yeah, there are relationships that work. uh I think it, yeah, I think it's because the person, if someone's not a course student but they are attuned to love, then absolutely it can work. What I think is, if someone isn't on a spiritual path at all, it's a little more difficult, because if you really view everything through a spiritual lens and you're with someone who doesn't view anything that way, that can create a pretty big chasm in how you look at
Right.
anything that's happening. So I think that would be difficult, but who, I mean, we all have a different, well, the purpose for relationships is to heal. And so if there's something in that that's healing, for someone who is on a spiritual path, their partner isn't, maybe there's something in there that is still healing for them, and maybe that's the best option for them. So yeah, I think it's really important not to have that be a prerequisite for a
Sure.
relationship.
Um, let's flip that around. How about two course students in a relationship? Do you think there might be a tendency for some bypassing, some emotional bypassing?
Mm, yes. And there also can be a tendency to, well, course students can also use the course against each other in a way, unintentionally. But uh, I think that can happen. We're not supposed to correct a brother. And so, you're in a
Right.
relationship and you feel like your partner is bypassing or your partner is being judgmental or whatever it is. It's tricky. I think, well, if both are intent on healing, then I think they would be able to point out their experience of something without putting their partner down or acting as if, it's when there's like some kind of comparison, like, oh, well, I know the course better than you do. I mean, not that people would say that,
Right.
but I think that gets acted out sometimes. So there's that.
I do love the thought of um, relationship as a healing path, and that two course students can come together and say, I'm committed to healing with you in whatever way it unfolds and however it takes shape. Um, I remember reading a line from Richard Bach. Um, wrote Illusions, and Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He wrote a great book, A Bridge Across Forever, about him finding his soulmate. And they were together for 20 years, and they got divorced. Maintained a good relationship, but he said he received so many letters from readers upset, actual hate letters, that your book made me believe in my soulmate. And now you're getting divorced. I don't know what to believe anymore. And he said, sometimes people come together in a loving way for the sole purpose of learning how to let go. I thought that was beautiful. Because it is hard.
That is beautiful. Yeah. And eventually we do have to let go of everyone in form. So every relationship in form is going to end, because if it doesn't end sometime during our life, it will end with death in terms of the form of it. Of course, as course students, we know that nothing is ending.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there's not a perceived loss when someone dies or when a relationship ends. But I like the idea. I was in a book I read many years ago, but it was basically that, relationships have their own lifespan, and sometimes it's our lifespan and sometimes it's not. And a soulmate, I think that's interesting too, because in the example that you gave, they got divorced, but that doesn't mean that they're still not connected.
Right.
And so a soulmate can just be someone that you're on this healing journey with. And the form of it, we can't get attached to the form. So it's, yeah. And when we do need to work on not being attached to things being any particular way, because that's a block to love.
True. And I would imagine that, everyone's lesson is going to be different, especially in a relationship. Really, when you think about it, what an amazingly beautiful thing when two people can realize that we've learned everything possible that we can from each other for this lesson, this particular lesson, and we can part with grace and with love.
Yes.
Um,
As long as
my,
one partner doesn't tell the other partner, we've maxed, maybe one partner doesn't feel that way. And that's where it's tricky with two course students too, because if one partner says, oh, our learning's been maximized, and the other partner's like, wait, I thought we were going to be together our whole lives. And the other one's like, nope, I've learned all I need. I mean, essentially it's saying I've learned all I need to learn from you, which is
right,
okay. But I also think it's important to recognize that what feels like completeness to one person may not feel like completeness to
sure,
the other person. So there needs to be some sensitivity around that. Because
right,
really, there's a song like, when a heart breaks, it doesn't break even. So in reality, you don't typically have two people who want to end a relationship at exactly the same time and with love. It just doesn't happen that often, unfortunately.
right. So you don't want to look at your partner and say, "Well, I'm graduating without you.
Yeah,
I'm ascending. Sorry,
yes, exactly. I'm
sorry, I
sending
gotta
now.
leave you behind."
Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
So guys, feel free to keep some questions out, relationships or otherwise, course related, and um, we will do uh, therapeutic questions, but in a non-therapeutic way. It's the best way to say that.
Yeah, therapeutic questions, and I'll try to answer in a spiritual, considering the spirituality of it, I guess would
Right.
be, yeah. And I had something I wanted to read, because of course, so the course talks a lot about special relationships, and I think it can be a bit confusing. Um, sometimes, because basically a special relationship is a relationship that has love and hate. And the ego the ego isn't able to love without also having hate. We just don't think of it as hate. Like when I first heard that, I'm like, I don't hate anyone. So it doesn't mean that you actually think of hating someone. It just means that you have unloving thoughts and feelings toward the person. And the ego, I mean, that's just accepted that, oh, you might, tell your partner to fuck off and that's just how it is. But then you make up and everything's great. And so that would be a sign of a special relationship when there's times where it's very loving and then times where people are yelling at each other or name calling or just not being kind.
Right.
So I think the healing path and to be in a holy relationship, it's being able to express from, we get to express we're angry, but we just don't blame the other person for it. So that's kind of the difference, is that in a healing or holy relationship, it's always in the present. So it's not future based, like it's not based on some fantasy of what's going to happen later. And it's always consistently loving. When it's not loving, at least the person recognizes, I'm not being loving or I'm angry, so I need to express this to you so I can move beyond it. And if I want you to change something because I'm angry at you because of this thing, then it's up to the partner to accept that or not. But in a loving relationship, that's usually able to be negotiated without a problem if both people are committed to healing.
I like that. My view always with a special relationship is that um, it can turn from that special love to special hate so easily and quickly. That so wait a minute, you are no longer feeling this particular way about me. That uh, you're no longer doing this particular thing for me. That um, you no longer make me feel this way. um, and how quickly. And we see it in so many uh, relationships where um, you think, "What a perfect couple! They seem so loving," and then uh, months, years later, they are bitter enemies.
Yeah. And it's, to me, I find that sad when, especially with divorce, when couples are married for years and years and then it's like the love, because the ego can, as you said, it can go from love to hate so quickly. And then sometimes it just stays in hate and it never comes back from that. And that can only happen if there's already hate in the mind. So I feel like it's up to us to work through, express what we need to get beyond any resentment toward anyone in a past relationship or a current one so we can fully love. So those things do need to be worked out or expressed in order to be able to be fully loving.
Right? Do you think? Could you take the basis of Course in Miracles, holy relationship and special relationship, and do you think it could be used as a um, outside of Course in Miracles students as a basic template serving as a loving relationship? That these could be perfect guidelines of how people can work, even if you're not a course student. If you had these guidelines of um, honoring someone's feelings and your own, committed to love above all else, no matter, and that might mean the person leaving or the person something happening. It means that the bottom line of love is never compromised.
Right.
Um, do you think there's like a place in relationships for that?
Absolutely. And I feel like that's, when I'm doing therapy, that's what I'm trying to help clients toward, because A Course in Miracles has such a beautiful way of explaining um, what love truly is. And oh my goodness. Charlie, can you please restrain? My terrier is being very terrier-ish right now, so
Curious.
I
Right.
apologize for that.
That's okay.
She's just being herself, but um anyway, yes, I think that it has a great we can learn so much about love and uh and it's not, and we want to have all of our relationships be loving. That's the other thing, is it's not about just being able to have a romantic relationship that's loving. It's having all of our relationships be loving. So the ego always likes to have different levels of love, and you love this person more than that person, and all of that. Whereas, yeah, the Course doesn't have any love is love. There's no more or less. It's just love, and it just manifests differently, obviously. Can't be close in time you spend or loving things you do with everyone. So we can, though, when we're walking around, still be extending love wherever we go and whatever we do.
We have our next question. Can a relaxed state of mind improve our relationships and give us a better perspective when we reach the three gates? And if you're not familiar with three gates, uh, this is I originally read it from Rumi. We talk about it quite a bit here, um, and it's mentioned an awful lot in Zen circles as well. That before anything, before you say anything, before any word leaves your lips, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Um, and we got to take it at the deepest level. When we say, is it true? Not that I want it to be true, or I wish it were true, or I think it might be true. Do you know with absolutely certainty, is this true? And when we say, is it necessary? It's not, I really, really need to say it. I will feel better if I say it. Is it necessary? Is it going to be helpful for the relationship, for the other person? Is it ultimately going to be helpful for you to say this? And I guess being kind, really, we know what that is. Is it
Yeah.
kind to the other person, and is it kind for yourself too?
Yes.
So
And
that's what he.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the is it true is a, if you know Byron Katie, her four questions. The first one, is it true? The second one is, something like, is it, how do you know, like, how do you know that it's true? Or is it always true, or whatever? I can't think of the exact wording, but the point is, it's a little, because what's true is true, like, for eternity. So I would have a hard time saying anything is true if I'm expressing it to someone, I think, because I don't know what's true and not true. I just know from experience, I suppose. So I think, yeah. So is it true? Uh, in the deepest sense, I think that would be helpful. But I think it's also helpful to, is it kind and is it helpful? To me, those are the most important in terms of waiting to speak until we can be helpful and kind, which often takes just pausing and waiting until we can do that. Because the ego, and I've talked about this on a past episode, like, the ego is usually, it has urgency. It wants to say it right away. And the more urgent I feel to say something or send an email or react to something, the more I know I need to wait and be in a peaceful place beforehand.
And I think that answered the first part of his question about, can a relaxed state of mind improve our relationships? Um, and
Yes, it's crucial to, I think a relaxed state of mind is necessary to have healthy relationships.
any suggestions?
Mm. Well, I think I think that we think way too much. So whatever helps us be fully present, that seems to help relationships is just to be present. So whether it's meditating or being in nature, whatever it is that helps quiet the mind, I think that's very helpful because especially if you have an argument with someone, then the mind can just spin and, oh, I didn't say this. I wanted to say that. I need to tell them this. And all of that isn't that helpful because I think the point of quieting the mind is so we can be in our right mind, which is a loving state. So we do our best, I think, to get into that loving state first, which that's a relaxed state of mind to me. And then if we can't, let's say that I'm really upset with this thing that this person did and I don't feel peaceful about it and I need to express it or I feel like I need to express it to get back to my peace, then I would also express it in that way. Like, yeah, I'm triggered. I think it's really helpful to have language with a partner to say when you're triggered by something. So you're letting the partner know, I'm not blaming you because I know I'm having this reaction not only because of what just happened, but because of my years of experience with this or something that happened to me in the past, because we're always bringing all of it with us.
Um, you brought up Katie Bryan, and that's another great way. There's 4 questions. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite one is, who would you be? And I use a different version. Who would you be in the absence of that thought? Who would you believe
Mm-hmm.
if that wasn't true? Um, and
Yeah.
I just love that thought. In the absence of this particular thought, every the whole reason I'm mad at you is
Mm-hmm.
based on a particular thought. In the absence of that thought, what is there? Do I have any basis to be upset? So if I just take a moment and think, you know what, if I wasn't thinking this thought, would I be upset with you? And it changes the perspective instantly.
Exactly. I think that's really helpful to at least recognize it's the thought that's upsetting. It's not the other person. And that doesn't mean that we don't have something to express to the other person. It doesn't mean that they didn't do something that was upsetting to us. But recognizing how we think about it and then asking ourselves, is there another way to think about this? That doesn't mean that I'm not still hurt, but at least if I know there's another way to think about it, I can work on that within myself before
Right.
I project my unhappiness onto someone else.
So what about the course's rules for decisions, which uh, I've been dedicating myself to that quite a bit. That, when you wake up and you say, I will make no decisions on my own today.
Yeah.
But towards the end, when you feel yourself that you're upset, and you realize I'm upset because I made a decision on my own, I didn't consult the Holy Spirit. But it's the last part that really, I think, gets us, and especially in a relationship, when we can say, um, I'm willing to see another way. I'm willing to see this differently.
Yeah.
Um, or at the end, can I at least be willing to see it a different way?
And I think, doesn't it also say, I must have seen it wrongly because I'm not at peace?
Yes.
So I think that also is really helpful for me to just know, because I would, you can go back and forth. Oh, is this my ego or is this not? And when you ask yourself, am I at peace? Okay, if I'm not at peace, then I know my ego's in there doing something. So, yeah, using the rules for decision to recognize, okay, I'm not at peace, so I must have chosen wrongly. And then asking the Holy Spirit to ask for help in seeing it differently, ask for help in returning to peace. And sometimes, I mean, and other people and a partner can be helpful in doing that. Like, we're not, A Course in Miracles is a self study, but we're not meant to do it alone. I mean, I don't think there's that many of us that really would be able, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just think that we're meant to use the world as our classroom. We're meant to practice with each other the best we can. So we need each other is the point. And we need others to work through things, because it does help just expressing things. You know, the Course does talk about private thoughts, which doesn't mean you need to tell your partner every thought that goes through your mind. It just means that if you feel guilty about something, you want to share that with someone so it doesn't keep guilt in your mind.
Right. And of course, if you are, I mean, we can say there's no private thoughts because um, everything is shown in some way. That I could be,
Yeah.
I could be quiet,
Mhm.
keep my thoughts to myself, but you'll know I'm upset with you. Um,
Right.
you know, they're really in a relationship, especially close relationship. You know, there really are no private thoughts. That you get that sense, and you say, "You mad at me? Did I do something?" Um, so we know. So if we know that we're going to know, uh, it would be helpful to take that. There are no private thoughts. Let me open up, at least when I'm ready, and let you know that I am upset. Um,
Yeah.
and then that the other person can offer some help in the matter.
Yes. And it's funny because, like with clients, there will be someone, that very scenario of, are you mad at me? No, I'm not mad. Well, you seem mad. Well, I'm not. Are you
Right.
sure? Well, I wasn't mad until you started quizzing me about being mad. That's how that goes sometimes. But the Course also teaches that a mild irritation and rage are the same thing. It's still being in the ego and not at peace. So I think it's important to recognize, if someone asks you if you're mad, there's probably, I mean, maybe they're projecting onto you. That's possible. But I think it's always good to look and recognize frustration or irritation are still forms of anger, and they're not wrong as long as we don't blame anybody for them. We're not meant
Right.
to deny our emotions. We're just also not meant to justify them.
And it's funny, we can weaponize projections in a relationship, especially on a spiritual path. Well, that's just your projections. I didn't do anything. It's just your.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's why. Yeah, going back to kind of two course students, depending, the ego is so good at what it does, so it can use the course against, not only against ourselves, but a partner
Right.
or anybody else who's on the path. And it probably will. So I think it's important to be on, kind of, not
Sure.
on the, I don't mean it like to be on guard, but just to be aware that that definitely can happen.
You want to know how I use the course as a weapon in a relationship?
Yes, I
When it
would love to.
when it was garbage night, and my spouse at the time would say, "Did you take the garbage out?" And I would say, "I need do nothing." Um, and it never went over. It never went over very well.
Weird.
Weird. Yeah, you would think. But I was much less of an advanced course student back then than I am now.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
um,
I
guys,
wanted
so
to say that, just kind of circling back to um, love addiction, I think recognizing that with any kind of addiction, there's a void and we try to fill it through something outside ourselves. And so with relationships, we've all been taught that we're supposed to look to someone to meet something within us. And so if we recognize that that's what we're doing, if we're giving to get, if we're trying to find a partner who's going to fulfill us, who's going to make us feel loved and appreciate us and all those things, we're most likely going to be disappointed because that's an inside job. Like we really have to, that saying like, oh, you can't really love someone until you love yourself. Well, you can be loving without loving yourself, but it is true that to truly love another person, you do need to be loving to yourself. And if you have a love void, which manifests as a elevated ego, like a narcissist, or a devalued ego, like a extremely codependent person, you're not going to find what you're looking for. It's impossible. You have to heal that wound first, or you will end up reenacting that dynamic of not being fulfilled in relationships. So, I have this happens with clients all the time. I mean, it's so amazing how past traumas get reenacted, and the more I have clients who are looking for something in a partner, the more they typically don't find it, because the ego is all about seek and don't find. And that's
Right.
the addictive part of it, because if you do find, oh, wow, this person does appreciate me, I feel so loved, and you have that high initially in a relationship, it feels so good. Your brain chemistry is firing like crazy with all these feel good neurotransmitters. It's going to crash. It cannot be sustained. So, for someone who's looking for a high, and who doesn't, I think we all like peak experiences, whether it's a spiritual experience or a relationship or a connection. But yeah, if we're looking for that again outside ourselves, it just doesn't work. And if you get a taste of it, then you're like pulling the handle on the slot machine, and
Right.
maybe if you won every time, it wouldn't be so addicting. But for someone who is more of a addictive type person who's looking to fulfill something, you're not going to choose well, because the ego will choose the high over something really healthy. And then with every high comes a low. Any addict
Right.
knows you can't have the high without the low. So,
And we love those early stages of relationship when
oh my God, yes.
everything is just right.
Hmm.
Loving and kind. Everyone is considerate to each other.
Yep.
No dirty socks on the floor. Uh, but sooner or later, someone's going to leave a dirty sock somewhere.
Well, even if they do leave the dirty socks, you're like, oh, isn't that so cute? Oh, he left me his socks here. Oh, that's so adorable. And then, 2 years later, it's like, I'm so sick of your socks, So,
Right.
yeah.
Um,
Because, and really, if you think of, then you address this too, Eric, like when you think about falling in love, that's what we're really, it's a misplaced miracle impulse. It's like we're looking for God. And so it's a substitute that's never going to work, because we already have it within us. We already are connected to God, and all the love that could ever exist is already within us. So in looking for it, we've already missed the whole point, which is we already are love. So we just want to find people we can extend it with and heal with and come more into it.
Thank you for that. Um, what? That whole thought of extending love, um, and that I think that's how you make a Course in Miracles relationship work. Um, that we're here to extend love towards each other. That commitment alone, and that together we are able to extend love even more. That we've joined, and now we get to keep extending that, because a lot of times you come to in a relationship and it comes very um, uh, closed off. That
Yes.
it's enough that I have you,
Mm-hmm.
which can be
Yeah.
form of addiction right there.
Yes. Well, and the fear of losing it, because if it's really love, it can't be lost. But a lot of times there is a fear, like people who have a hard time with their partners having, so, I know not just clients, but people who say, well, my partner can't be friends with anyone if they're heterosexual. They can't be friends with anyone of the opposite sex.
Hmm.
And uh, why? Like, okay, so you don't trust your partner. That's an issue. It's not so much about the friends. The issue is the trust. When we trust in love, we know that there's no, it's not something you can control or possess. And if, let's say you have a, partner cheats and you had an agreement to be monogamous and it was broken, then, a lot of times when that happens, then it becomes this thing where, and a lot of therapy will support this. I don't and never have, but it's sort of like, okay, well, now I just get to check I'm going to just get on your phone whenever I want, and I need to know your location. And it just becomes this like really controlling. I need to make sure you don't do this again. And that's not helpful either. So I think we really have to look at the ego. The ego does not love, not capital L love, because it can so easily turn to hate. And if you have a partner that cheats on you, it doesn't mean that you're like, oh, you had an agreement, they broke it. You have a right to be upset about that. You just don't have a right to then try to control. If you can't then rebuild the trust with them, then there's no point in even staying in it.
And as we've mentioned several times, the course nor any therapy is bypassing in any way. The course doesn't say, um, hey, push your feelings down inside. Yes, they cheated on you, but you can forgive them. And you can forgive and still say this relationship isn't honoring my best intentions right now.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And that's it. We want to forgive everything. We want to forgive the world. And so to do that, yeah, we want to be able to forgive even no matter what it is that this other person has done. But that doesn't mean that we need to stay in a relationship. So I think we really have to honor ourselves. And if the interpersonal dynamics in a relationship become the focus of your thoughts more than your spiritual growth and your path of love, because relationships can really be distracting from our purpose, from our healing, or they can be a tremendous help. But they can't be both at the same time. So
Right.
we need to be, there is no spirit, like you said, it's not helpful to spiritually bypass and pretend like, oh, we never get upset. But it is helpful to recognize it's coming from my own mind. And that's what always needs to be healed, whether I'm in a relationship or not.
Patty, I wonder if you could address something. I don't know if they're still here, and it's not really a question, but maybe you could just offer some insight. Um, Someone just came into the chat that his name is God Seeking Atheist. He says, I made a YouTube video discussing my inability to find a higher power and how that ties into my alcoholism and atheism, if anyone gives a crap. And I went to, uh, and again, I don't know if he's here, but if he still is, at least we can let him know that there is someone that gives a crap. Um, and then maybe just a perspective on uh, that addiction and, the 12 steps, finding your higher power is a big thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, though, um, you know, our new friend, if you're not finding your higher power and you're creating suffering because you think I'm not following the steps, it's like believing that you're uh, there's something that you haven't forgiven, and I'm a bad course student because I haven't forgiven it. That if you haven't found your higher power and you think, I'll never get sober because I can't find my higher power. Um,
Mm.
just wonder if there's some insight to what he said that maybe you could uh, give to him to comfort, to
Yeah.
help.
And that comes up a lot where uh with any kind of 12-step program, a lot of people are turned away because they say, well, not only do I not believe in God, but I don't think I have a higher power, or I don't think I have any intuition. And I think the first step of that is knowing it's possible that there's another way. I mean, that's how A Course in Miracles came about. There must be another way. And so then asking for help and it's not even something you have to find, because it's something that you are, and you can't find what you already are. It's just having the awareness. And maybe for someone who's an atheist, it's just it's just finding that peaceful center. So being able to get beyond the thoughts and just be present in the moment, and then know that you already, whether you are aware of it or not, you already have all the love within you. And it's only the ego that tells us that we're not worthy. And it's only the ego that keeps us in addiction because we don't know our own worth. And so it's okay to go to meetings and feel like, oh, I don't have a higher power. That's okay. Go anyway. Just go anyway and take it in. And over time, it just, the 12-step programs will say you can use anything as your higher power. You can use anything that is brings you to a peaceful state of mind. Uh, as long as, well, I mean, when I say using, I don't mean like you're not going to be using another person, but a way of quieting your mind and knowing that there is that we are spiritual beings, even if you don't feel like you are. If you have to have some trust, you have to trust that you truly are, and keep going until you can actually, and if when people stick with it, if they're committed to it, they eventually will experience whatever it is for them, because
Right.
it feels different for all of us. Some people hear a voice that they know is their higher power. Some people it's just a feeling. Some people it's God. It doesn't matter what we call it. It's possible for everyone to have peace because they already have it within. So it's possible for everyone to have awareness of that.
Thank you for taking the time to offer that. And again, I don't know if they're still here. Maybe they'll tune in again and see it. Um, and that would be a wonderful clip to have out there for, because someone else is going to have that thought and that question, and it'll find the right person. I had a thought when you were saying that. What if sobriety itself was our higher power?
Yeah,
Because, well,
absolutely.
if you're seeking sobriety, uh, then there it is. There's your higher power right there. Is sobriety, and
Yeah,
it's right there for you to step into.
that
Um,
is a wonderful tool for someone who, yes, needs, because then that just helps with the daily commitment to being sober. That's that. And if someone falls off, it doesn't matter uh what you're committed to in your spiritual practice. We aren't going to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. Nothing is lost when we make a mistake. So it's still there. And if sobriety is your higher power and you fall off, it doesn't mean that your higher power is gone. It just means you just gotta start again right now.
I always liked uh, Kenneth Wapnick's definition of a good Course in Miracles student. That a good Course in Miracles student is a bad Course in Miracles student who forgives himself. Um, And you could say, the same with the path of sobriety. Um, you fall as many times as you fall until you don't.
Yes. Yep. And it's just
Um,
that commitment, no matter what it is that you feel like you use as a distraction from yourself or as something to keep you in a cycle of guilt, you just commit to not doing that. I'm just committing to not doing that, whatever the thing is. And if you fall off, you commit again. And then that kind of encompasses any kind of thing that we could be addicted to or overusing. It's, keeping a commitment to ourselves is is a form of self-worth.
but someone who was very close to me uh, several times uh, stepped off the sobriety path, um, fell off the wagon, and uh, she was so upset that she had to start counting days over again. As much as she was about quitting drinking, it was, I got to start over again. I'm back to day one. And when I um, tried to comfort her, she said, "Well, it's easy for you. How many days have you been sober?" And it occurred to me, I've never counted the days that I've been sober.
Oh,
And
wow.
I wrote her a little essay um, about my one step program, and that it's always and only day one. And we can
Oh,
break it down even further. This moment, I'm sober. I don't know. I don't know what the next moment's going to hold. Even after 27 years now of sobriety, the next moment might hold alcohol. Uh, I don't think so, but it's always that possibility. Um, but as long as I'm sober this moment, I'm sober. Right now, I'm sober.
yeah.
I can't ask for anything more than that.
I think that's so, I love that because I feel like, especially if someone who's counting days, they have 22 years, and going back to day one, uh, that's hard to reconcile. And I don't know. I mean, I think there's helpful things for some people in counting days, but I also like just being sober today. I mean, it's sort of
Um,
like a relationship in just be loving today. You don't
sure.
have to worry about if you're going to be loving next week. Just take it day by day, just like with sobriety. And the ego loves to mark time and anniversaries and that can be, if it's not taken too seriously, that can be enjoyable. But what really matters is, you could be married for 50 years of hate, or you could be single and have 50 years of love. So I think, yeah, just doing it now, always coming back to that.
I'm glad you brought up that being in a relationship that's not working very well, because we have a friend who said, "But what about people like today's commonplace relationships, where the parents stay together out of a sense of obligation, or in now times, an inability to live alone?"
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of those types of relationships. And I don't think we're meant to stay in a relationship out of obligation. And yet, if I also think we have to go with what feels right. So let's say that I'm in a relationship and I feel like, if I, there's some reason that I know that my kids are really going to suffer and it's a really bad time for them. And I just feel strongly that I just don't want to do that. Because then if I went ahead and got divorced, feeling like it wasn't the right thing for me, even though the relationship wasn't the best, then uh, there would be a guilt about that. And that's not going to be helpful. So sometimes, I mean, someone may stay in a relationship even though it's not the most fulfilling because it feels like the right thing. But we just have to look at does it feel like the right thing because this is the most loving thing for myself and the other person, or is it more based on perception of what people will think? And we can't be responsible for other people's reaction, even kids. And a lot of times, we don't know. Um, Sometimes kids are better off when their parents get divorced.
Right.
It's You just can't say, and you can't always know either. So I think it's really important just to check in, and this is where the question of is does this feel like the most loving thing for me as well as others, even if they don't like it. If you're in a relationship where you're being abused, it's not loving to that other person to stay in the relationship and let them abuse you. So I think we really have to look at love a little bit differently in order to learn what the most loving thing is to do in different situations.
It's a great question to ask ourselves. Um, is this the most loving thing I can do for my son? Then having a real sense of inclusion, that we're not leaving ourselves out of that. And I think
Exactly.
especially a mother is going to think, is this the most loving thing I can do? And she's going to think of her kids, her husband, her dog, her house, her job before she thinks of herself,
Mm.
before she includes herself in, am I having the most loving thought that I can have about myself? And I think that's one of the plight of so many mothers, leaving themselves out of that equation of love.
Yes. Yeah, and I think, and part of that is also, if we buy into the perception, because mothers are blamed for things that go wrong with children a lot more than fathers. So we have to be able to see beyond that and recognize that that is we're responsible, of course, to do our best to take care of our children. But again, we're not meant to sacrifice our well-being in order to do that, unless there's some situation where we absolutely. But if we really have to do that, it wouldn't feel like sacrifice. It would just feel like the right thing to do. So uh, it can be really. I think those kind of things where we do make decisions about relationships that we know are going to impact other people. It's good to consult with others and take our time to discern what the most important thing is for everyone involved. And we can't always
Right.
know. We can just do our best to tune in to our true self and go from there.
Um, you said something that had me thinking, uh, taking that addiction to love in a little separate direction, because we've been talking about love addiction in a romantic
Mhm.
relationship. But what about love addiction um, uh, in a family sense? That some parents really can be addicted to their kids, literally living out their own fantasies through a kid's sport, or on the stage, or you know afraid of letting go, or the addiction of love, for how we're using the term in this discussion, can be sort of just like the ego. It can be insidious, can turn up in
Yes.
any situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it happens with parenting a lot. And it just takes an awareness of noticing if we're using our kids to fulfill our own self concept. And, as a mom, I remember that when my son would get in trouble for something, there was one time where he got in trouble for doing something to some other kid. And I had the thought, oh God, I would much rather have him be the victim than the perpetrator, which that sounded in my own mind like, oh, that's horrible. But it's like, oh, my kid is not going to, do something that hurts another. Didn't even do anything to hurt another kid. But even if he did, but the point was that I was much more comfortable with the thought of him having something done to him than him doing something that wasn't kind to another kid. So, I had to look at my own attachment to having these children who are kind and good friends and all those things, and same thing with achievements, noticing. I used to watch my son's football games and I would notice, wow, I'm really attached to them doing well or winning, and I just it's okay. I just recognize that it's not about that, and uh I don't want to put any pressure on my kids in any way. I want them to just be happy and enjoy things. And if I have some attachment to how things go, whether it's grades or sports or friends, then we just know that that's work for us to do, to be able to accept our kids. Our kids are their own little people, and we need to be able to accept them and guide them the best we can. But we also have to recognize it is so easy to then try to live through kids. And the whole point of parenting is that you basically age out of a job, so it's something that we have to recognize, because parents, make their kids, a lot of times they're the center of their world, and then they go off and they have their own life, and a lot of parents have a hard time with that. And it's because we get attached to the role that we play. And it's okay to play roles. We're not meant to not play different roles. But we also don't want to get too attached to them, because then we will feel a loss. And it's okay again to feel lost, but we're really not losing anything. We're just losing the form of the relationship as it was. And that's in any relationship, it's going to change. So if we get
Yeah.
attached to it being a certain way, it's going to change.
Um, you ever read the prophet Kehil Gibran?
Yes.
Um, there's a wonderful. I just brought it up real quick. Um, on when the master in the book was asked the prophet, speak to us of children, and he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they yet with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and bends with you his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves the bow that is stable."
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Um, so addiction and love. Uh, and I'm thinking that because I'm thinking what he wrote, and we were talking, parenting right now, but I think the cure might be having a sense of, um, I don't want to say detachment, but non attachment, that we love without restriction.
Yeah. Which, again, from an ego perspective, and this is something that I even use with clients, is attachment styles. So there's anxious, there's avoidant, there's secure, and secure is supposed to be the one you go for, but really it's beyond. Secure attachment from a spiritual standpoint is still attachment, and our attachment really, we want to attach to love. And so we want to attach to love in uh, however that manifests. And so that's secure attachment. So if we're able to come from a loving place, then we have a secure attachment to love, but it doesn't have to be to that person, because we don't want to attach to uh, the form of something.
Right.
I mean, we may want to, of course, we want to. Like, I am attached to my kids. I mean, if my kids were like, oh, I'm moving away and I'm, thanks for all you've done, peace out, yeah, I would, I would have a lot of feelings about that, and I would have to go through a lot of grief. But, so it's not, we're human, and we're going to have human emotions and attachments, and it's okay. We just want to know that there's something beyond that. And that's not
Right.
where the love doesn't rest in the attachment. It's beyond that.
Nicely said, Patty. Very, very much so. Um, because as you said, you will have feelings because of moving across the country, or even just a little bit farther away. And it's okay to have those feelings. It doesn't change the nature of love itself. And that's I think the important realization, because a lot of times, uh, we think if things are rearranged differently, it's going to change the love. But love doesn't come, love doesn't go. Little things, particular things, they come and go.
Yeah. And like when you said that, love doesn't come, love doesn't go, love just is. And so it's a gift for us to be able to give love. And we want to, I notice for myself that if I'm giving love to someone who's unable to receive it, that doesn't feel helpful for either of us. So I do think that that doesn't mean that I'm not still going to be sending them love, but I'm not going to do that in form if that doesn't, if that's not what they want. You can't
Right.
force love on someone. You can't force love on kids or parents or friends. You can't, yeah. We don't get to really decide how that's meant to play out. We just want to be open to how it's meant to play out so that we can maximize the love that we can give. And that's where the ego is the reverse of that, because especially in romantic relationships, it's like, well, what's this person going to do for me? And that's just not going to lead to anything loving
Or healthy.
or healthy. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
so speaking of health, uh, we can measure the depth of the lovingness of a relationship, would you say, by does it feel healthy? Because love should feel healthy, right? Love shouldn't, um, there should be no sense of this just isn't right. If you have in that, maybe we need to address the theme of entire tonight's topic. You know, is this addiction,
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
is it really loving?
right. And I think if two people, so let's say that there's a relationship and it feels difficult, so it doesn't feel easy, but the two people are committed to, they know that they trigger each other and that they want to heal it together. That could be healthy, even though it's not easy. On the other hand, it doesn't have to be like that. You could just have people who naturally just align so that the love that they have to give is maximized. When they share it together, they're also sharing it with the world. So we're meant to share the love that we have with whoever it is, a pet, a tree, a partner, and give that to everyone in whatever way we can. So it one thing, if we're waiting, so a lot of people fall in love with someone's potential. So don't wait for, I know they're capable of this and I've done that myself. Oh, they just need to heal this thing and then they'll be less judgmental. And waiting for that is not a very loving thing to do, because it's a good chance it won't ever happen. And you don't want to, yeah, you don't want to be loving someone's potential, even your own potential. We need to love ourselves now. And you want to have a partner that you can love now, not someone that just needs some work and then you can love them.
Right. Right. It's a really important consideration. Not falling in love with someone's potential doesn't mean you can't see their potential.
Right.
But if your
And
love is
support their potential, they're working towards something. Yeah.
right, but what's going to happen if they don't achieve it? Are you still going to love them? Are you still going to be there? Are you still going to be, you know, do you shift the potential a little down the meter? And I loved you for this,
Right. Yeah.
but maybe I can like you for
Right.
this. Let's have that sliding meter.
Yes.
So, Patty, we're coming up on an hour and 40 minutes. This has been an amazing conversation. It flew by.
I appreciate being here. And maybe I think this is, I was thinking about us talking today that, this is a topic we can spend more time on. So
Definitely.
if we want to stick on this the next month, we can. And people are also, if anyone has suggestions of topics they'd like us to cover, please feel free to share, since we're doing a monthly episode. And I'm just so grateful to be here and sharing this with all of you.
So originally you were going to come up March 7th, and you asked if we could switch to the 16th. And, thinking about it, that works out well because the month is halfway over. So that means we're going to have you up even sooner now. I don't have to
Yeah.
wait an
So
entire month.
when will I be back? When do you want me back?
What is most convenient for you? You want to do something beginning of the month?
Sure. Yeah,
You want
let's do
to?
that.
We're sticking with Mondays, right?
Yep.
I happen to have a calendar in my quest of efficiency. I actually found myself a calendar. How about the 13th? Because that's my birthday week. So
That would be great.
you will be leading off. You know, you'll be a gift. You'll be a gift for me. Spending company with
Uh,
you will be a gift for me.
I would love to come on your birthday week. Sounds great.
Awesome. Hey, and the next time we talk, I want to ask you a question about this. Came up in two different conversations on the course. Um, Birthday lessons. The date of the year, how many days it's been in, what is that lesson, um, and does it have significance for you? Have you ever looked it up?
Oh, I haven't. That's interesting.
Dove Fishman told me last week his thoughts, his beliefs, that the lesson of your birthday lesson, is what you came here to teach.
Oh, great. I'm looking it up when we when we get off our call. My birthday's in December, so I'll have to work backwards to figure that out. So yeah, that's great.
Send me a message on what yours is.
Oh, I
Um,
will.
I'll be
Yes.
interested to hearing what it is. All right, guys. So
Great.
on the 13th of April, we will be uh, Miracles of Monday all over again. And
Yes.
bring your questions, your concerns, anything that you guys want to talk about. Um, Kat said, "Since when did Yogi have a birthday week?" Well, now.
Now she's good. Now she knows it's a whole week. So at least it's not a birthday month. That could be a little, much, but yeah.
So yes, birthday week, and you're leading it off. I appreciate that. Kat's birthday is the 6th, which is a Monday as well. So now I feel I should have picked the 6th.
Happy birthday, Kat.
So we'll set it up. We'll be good to go. Let me know your birthday lesson. I'm really looking forward to hearing what that is. So it's going to be one of the early ones since it's in December.
Yeah, well, it'll be toward the end.
Towards
December.
The end. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm glad it's not. One of the early ones, nothing I see means anything. I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure they're all perfect for whoever they're for. So we'll see what it is.
I'm looking forward to finding out. Tricia says, thank you, Tricia. Guys, thank you for coming in. Thank you for the questions and your support. Love you all. And Patty, my friend, love you too.
Love you. And thank you everyone for being here. And I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you in a couple weeks.
Yep.
3, 4, whatever it is. So thank you.
You're welcome.